What's up, guys? Dylan here, and today I'm going to talk about something controversial. 5 reasons why Bitcoin is better than gold. So like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are below. And are you team gold or team Bitcoin? And let me know that at the beginning of the video. Maybe this video will change your mind for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is often referred to as the digital gold. And there are Bitcoiners, hardcore Bitcoiners, that think it's even better than that, even better than just digital gold, that there's so much more to it. And I fall into that camp. So maybe I'm a little biased. But there's also gold bugs that don't understand Bitcoin, or they do, or they think they do. Notably, the most notable one is a guy named Peter Schiff that thinks Bitcoin is just some meaningless speculative token that is backed by air and backed by nothing. So therefore, it has no value, where gold has real value. But here, let me get into this. And no matter what camp you fall into, I just implore you to approach this with an open mind. And let me tell you the 5 reasons why Bitcoin, I think, is better than gold. So number 1 is portability. So Bitcoin is highly portable, and it exists purely in digital form. So it can be easily transferred across borders, stored in digital wallets, without the need for physical transportation or security like you would with gold. And so what does this mean? If you were to want to transfer $1 billion across the world, okay, since we don't have teleporters, you can't do that without time, significant amount of time, and cost, because $1 billion of gold, right? That takes you back to the Wild West, where train robbers want to rob that. And so you got to have security, you got to have insurance, you got to have a bunch of stuff on that for that. And that actually costs a significant amount of money. But with Bitcoin, you can send $1 billion worth of Bitcoin like that to anyone, anywhere in the world. That's pretty powerful. Okay, that's a substantial difference. So if we're just talking about transfer of value, getting value from one place to another, from one set of hands to another. With gold, you got to go through all these checks and balances. You can't take it on an airplane. You got to really go through some serious protection of that gold, especially if you're traveling through areas that might be hotly contested. But with Bitcoin, you can send it, almost no one knows, okay? And you can do it almost immediately. So portability is a big reason why Bitcoin is better than gold. 2 is divisibility. And if you don't know this about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is divisible to 8 decimal places. One Bitcoin has 100 million Satoshis. And what this allows is microtransactions with Bitcoin. So you can divide a Bitcoin almost infinitely, not quite, but almost infinitely. And maybe there's room, and I'll talk about this in one of the other ones, there's room for some adjustments in that divisibility of Bitcoin going forward. But for gold, there's a minimum amount that you can divide gold. You can only divide it up so far. If you keep cutting gold in half, and eventually you're not going to be able to do it. And so that's a big problem with gold, is that it takes up space in the physical realm. Like we talked about, Bitcoin being in the digital realm, gold being in the physical, right? It takes up space, and so it's harder to divide. So if you wanted to buy something, say the price of gold skyrockets, I think it's like around $2,000, roughly around there. You would have to, if you had a bar of gold, an ounce of gold, that's $2,000. In order to buy something, say a cup of coffee, you got to chop off a minuscule amount. And you better make sure you get the right amount chopped off, and especially you got to make sure you don't waste any of that gold in the process of chopping that chunk off. So it's hard to do. It's hard for microtransactions. So it's not as useful on day-to-day transactions and for smaller things, where Bitcoin gets the win in that category. Number 3 is accessibility. Bitcoin can be accessed and utilized by anyone with an internet connection, while gold ownership often requires a physical possession or reliance on intermediaries such as banks or custodians. Now, there's a couple things to this, okay? The cool thing about Bitcoin is you can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. Now, you won't get a full Bitcoin for that, but you'll get some sats. You can buy $100, $200, $1,000, $1 million. Michael Saylor has bought billions worth of Bitcoin. And you can't quite do that with gold. It's hard to buy $1 worth of gold. Maybe if you have a friend that has a small gold coin, but that's going to be worth a lot more than $1. So it prices out many people in the world. Now, if you're watching this and you're in America, you're probably fortunate. Right? You got money, and you're pretty wealthy compared to the rest of the world. But for people in the rest of the world, this is a big problem. How do they store their wealth? Well, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is they can buy just fractions of a Bitcoin and start storing their wealth in something without having to save up hundreds of dollars, because in dangerous places, it can be extremely risky to be hiding hundreds of dollars of value in a bank there, or even under your bed, because those things don't really go over well in unstable economies. But with Bitcoin, someone could literally get paid, and if they could get it in digital form, in some format, they could get Bitcoin. Or they could have someone send them Bitcoin. Right? They can send them a physical good and be sent Bitcoin and be able to store that. So Bitcoin is accessible to everyone. And dare I say, Bitcoin is something that's accessible to all 8 billion people on the planet, should they choose to access it. All you need is an internet connection, right? One time to create a wallet. And now you're set up. It's pretty powerful and pretty amazing. So that's accessibility. Number 3, why Bitcoin is better than gold. 4 is transparency. Bitcoin operates on a decentralized blockchain, which enables transparent transactions that can be verified by anyone. They say don't trust, verify. Well, Bitcoin embodies that. Gold transactions, on the other hand, may lack transparency and involve complex supply chains and things like that. So with Bitcoin, if I send you Bitcoin, you send me Bitcoin, that is all viewable on the blockchain. And we can do it, semi-anonymous. We can do it semi-anonymously, where you haven't revealed what your public keys are. The people will be able to see the transaction went through, but they won't be able to determine who it went to and from, okay? But with gold, you have to know. And if you're transmitting large amounts of value, like someone has to mark it off on their books. And so a private entity generally will see that this money is transferred from here to there. And where Bitcoin, everyone can see it. But that's the beautiful thing about it, because you can always verify the transactions. And one problem with gold that Bitcoin doesn't have is the classic problem of, does the person who says they have the gold, do they actually have the gold? Because generally gold will get coalesced by third parties that protect the gold. And ultimately what happens is they start lending out IOUs to the gold that they have in their vault, because it's hard to verify. It's not transparent on how much they actually have. And they end up lending out more IOUs than they actually have gold in their possession. And we know what happens there. But with Bitcoin, that is impossible. There's only the amount of Bitcoin that exists, and you can see who has it. It is impossible to create more Bitcoin than what exists already, other than the mining process. But we know exactly what that is. And it's impossible to do the, quote, double spin. Bitcoin solved the double spin problem, so you can't spin the same Bitcoin more than once. But gold, on the other hand, you can double spin gold by saying you have a bunch of gold in your vault, and you'll give someone a note that says they can take that gold out. They're actually double spinning that gold because it may not even be there. So transparency is key for Bitcoin, and why people around the world love it so much, because it can't be manipulated by certain centralized governments that might have nefarious intentions. And that brings us to number 5, programmability. Bitcoin, its underlying technology, blockchain, enables the development of smart contracts and decentralized applications. Now, there is a lot of debate back and forth about to what degree does it enable this? Are they even effective? And then people talk about other blockchains. But the purpose here is that you can actually interact with Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoiners like to call gold just a dumb rock. You can't really interact with gold. It's just there. It exists, which has worked surprisingly well for a long period of time. But with something like Bitcoin, and us living in a digital age where we're all interconnected, being able to interact and set conditions based upon certain parameters or qualities of the Bitcoin that you have. Ordinals is an example of that, being able to interact with certain qualities of Bitcoin to create other types of utility and value there is very fascinating. It's something that you can't do with gold, but you can do with Bitcoin, which I think makes it pretty cool and unlocks a ton of potential in the future that we're just scratching the surface on, because this is all very new. This is new stuff, and it's powerful stuff. And I think it has a bright future ahead of it. So just a recap of the 5 reasons why Bitcoin is better than gold. Number 1, portability. Number 2, divisibility. Number 3, accessibility. 4, transparency, and 5, programmability. So those are the 5 reasons why I think Bitcoin is better than gold. Now, you may agree or disagree, but definitely let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.